My name's Jasmin and I've actually just recently completed a Masters of Public Policy here at Crawford. Full-time public servant here in Canberra. I have been for 6 years now. I started off in the Environment Department, but right now I'm an advisor in the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. I studied a very interesting and rare degree called a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies, Honours in Sustainability. Yeah, I did have a good look at the various offerings, including Masters elsewhere and Masters at ANU, and I realised that the Masters of Public Policy was, because it was more generalist, it could sort of transcend the sort of how do I put it? Like it's almost like it's so generalist that I could study all the same courses that I would in a more specialist degree, but also have that umbrella that everyone recognises as the Masters of Public Policy. So it's the recognition of that qualification that really put me over the line for it. I don't think there is a typical day that I can comment on, but maybe just from the perspective of when I was studying the more regular coursework here at Crawford, a lot of the classes are offered at a really flexible time for people that want to study part-time and also work full-time. So on a typical day, I might get up a bit early, do some reading over my porridge, head into work, smash out a few briefs or estimates briefs or other sorts of meetings and advice. Then at lunchtime, more reading over my lunch. This is all preparing for the lecture, of course, which is at Crawford usually offered in the afternoons or even in the evenings, including the tutes. So that's the flexibility of it. I mean, the classes were totally variable, right? But as a sort of standard class, a few hours of lectures, maybe with a guest speaker in the middle, a couple of breaks with tea, coffee and biscuits to have the students mingle with each other and ask questions. There are a couple of really cool ones, like one of my lecturers had a Poll2Go app on everyone's phones, so we had little quizzes in the class and we would put up responses and random questions that we had. So, various levels of interaction in the lectures. Yeah, personally, I think it was really important for me to challenge myself and to really get that headspace to focus on issues that I'm passionate about. So in my case, a lot of various environmental policies, climate change policies, but also just, the meaty questions that are facing government and institutions. In early 2017, I went across to the US, the early days of the Trump administration, to work in Senator John McCain's office as a Congressional Research Fellow. And that was through a program that is coordinated out of Crawford School and is across the group of 8 universities called the Congressional Research Fellowship Program. I was working to an advisor on resource, energy and local Arizona issues because the senator is a senator from Arizona, and he just sort of threw random things at me around energy policy, local Indigenous issues. It was just a great mix of sort of observing how that process was unfolding with the new administration and actually getting into the detail of some really interesting policies. To be kind of frank, it's helped to open some doors for me in my career. So in fact, the role that I now have in Prime Minister and Cabinet, in the interview for that role, I was quoting some of the experiences that I had as a fellow in the US, and I think that really helped to sort of help me stand out from the crowd. Crawford has this great mix of world-class academics, right? Like really people that I admire and inspire me in terms of their academic outputs and what they contribute to policy. So they've got that. But it's also just actually quite down to earth. So, having the tea and coffee with fellow students in a break, being able to just approach a leader in, an academic field and say, hey, what do you think about this? Just being open to discussion in the way in which the lectures, seminars, tutes are all delivered. I was really thankful for. Having, just the label and a good, set of grades from ANU has really helped me to look at international options as well for my next step in terms of studying. So, it's recognised around the world as one of Australia's, one of the best university in Australia, so that really helps. And just, as I mentioned, the collegiate environment. So in fact, I actually did one subject outside of Crawford School as part of my master's, and just having that flexibility in Crawford to go across all of the ANU community was really good. It wasn't just that fellowship that made the Crawford Masters a really great experience, because it was that flexibility to work across ANU, the accessibility of the lecturers, and just the variety of courses that are offered. So, I originally went into the Public Policy Masters thinking that, I'd specialise in environment, climate change stuff, but I ended up doing all sorts of interesting case studies that really broadened my understanding of policy and the way in which policy is developed and institutionalised.